welcome back to another video here on the From the Farmyard podcast. Today we are once again diving into our series that we are titling our Farmyard Friends. And if you joined us before on this series, then you know the deal already. But if you haven't, let me just talk to you a bit about what this is. This series we are bringing on a few people that we know or have met, people whom we call mentors, but most importantly, ones we call friends, and we hope you will too. But enough from me. Let's get into the video and let our guest introduce herself.
Hey guys, I am Mickayla, and I am a 9-to-5 architectural designer and a homesteader all of the other hours of the day. I have a homestead in the foothills of North Carolina.
That's cool. So that's what you do. That's your work. That's neat.
Yeah. Yep.
That's really cool.
Has it come in handy
Yeah,
working on the homestead?
Working in architecture?
Yes.
I learned a lot about landscape design while I was in school, and I am very good at designing things like our chicken coop and that kind of stuff. And we're renovating our house too, so a lot of things come in handy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's good.
So you guys have quite the story for your farm down there. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how or why you just started, your whole backstory on how or why you decided to start your farm / homestead journey?
Yeah, we can go into it. It's got a lot of ridiculous twists and turns. So I'll try and stick to the basics, but feel free to interrupt and ask me questions. So I grew up in a small town in northern Michigan, and it was mostly a farming town, but I wasn't in the farm lifestyle at all. But I literally grew up running around the farm fields, like surrounding my house and just like a feral child in the woods. So we had like gardens and stuff growing up, but they were your typical like green bean, tomato, Miracle-Gro gardens that we did just for the hobby of doing them and hanging out with my dad. We didn't harvest. Really, honestly, I went out and snacked on it as a kid. We didn't harvest or preserve or anything like that. But I've always loved cooking and food, and that's a huge part of why I homestead. I'm a super picky eater, and I have a lot of texture issues. So a lot of me cooking and homesteading and growing these things is to get myself like introduced to new foods and the textures of them, like tomatoes. I want to eat a tomato and enjoy it.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you. Okay, this is an argument here on the podcast. Zachary loves tomatoes so much. I can't stand the texture of a raw tomato. I gag. You put it in your mouth, it pops, and then just whatever the heck that is inside there, just
not good. But I want to like it. I want to so badly.
Thank you.
So yeah, that's a big part of this, is me trying to teach myself how to like tomatoes and onions, and the process of growing them makes me more invested in that. So I'm like, okay, if I grow it and I go through the time of doing it, I have to eat it.
Yeah.
That's really ironic. You would bring that up here. That's so funny.
Yeah, so that's a huge part of it, because I grew up on like Fruit Gushers and Kraft mac and cheese and ramen. Yeah. So when I got into college, I really got into like house plants and having my entire room filled with plants, because it just made me so happy.
Oh, I like her. I like her. You're very much like me.
All of my houseplants are like basically dead besides this one right now. But yeah, so I always had like a mini balcony garden, like pots on the balcony and stuff, when I had a bunch of roommates and everything. And then like I said earlier, I was in architecture school, and the program I was in is architecture and sustainability. So I learned a lot about landscape design. I learned about community sufficiency, sustainability, and like building practices and that kind of stuff. And we also learned a little bit about permaculture. And so that kind of planted another seed. But the main like thing that threw me into homesteading really hardcore was 2020.
Yeah.
So I was in grad school, and we had just moved to Charlotte, North Carolina for me to go to grad school, my boyfriend and I, who's now my husband. I was basically just starting grad school, and we moved here in July of 2019, and he was in the middle of looking for jobs because he quit his job to move down here with me. And it was in the middle of like interviewing for jobs and everything that COVID happened, and the job that he was trying to get got canceled. And so we had no money and I had to finish school online. We moved back to Michigan, and we basically ended up living with our friend in his guest room for a year and a half and just tried to pick up the pieces of our life in the middle of the pandemic. And so the reason that I kind of got into gardening at that point was I got super depressed that we had to move back to Michigan, because Michigan winters are no joke. I have really bad like seasonal depression, and I just had a hard time with it. And we had always dreamed of moving to North Carolina, so it was like it felt like losing that dream.
I get that for sure. Pennsylvania, it's got a lot of snow, and you really get stuck inside, and I personally hate that. I gotta be outside. It's where I feel the most peace, and especially someone who struggles with like anxiety and stuff. Like I just want to be outside and just be able to like breathe in that fresh air. And like I know you can do that in the winter, but it really is different. So I do understand that a lot.
Where I'm from in Michigan, we consistently went over 100 days straight every year without seeing the sun.
Yeah, that's
so like
that is depressing.
I could not.
So I was in a really bad mental state at that point, just not happy whatsoever, trying to finish grad school, trying to put life back together and see what that looked like for us at that point. So I really just needed something to look forward to and plan for, and something that I could do on that little tiny postage stamp lot in Metro Detroit. So the friend we were living with, his ex-girlfriend was really into gardening as well. She's actually one of my friends, but she had moved out because they broke up, and they had this tiny little landscape bed that she had turned into a garden, and then it got super overgrown, neglected, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start a garden there.
Gotta work with what you have.
Yeah, it was tiny. I think it was bigger than most landscape beds, but it was just behind his house. I think it was like a triangle shape, and it was like 9 foot by 9 foot by 9 foot. So it was really small. I grew so much stuff in it though. I grew like 10-foot tall sunflowers and everything like that. It was really, really fun. I really needed it. It got me out of a rut, but I also really got into homestead and gardening YouTube at that point. I was inside working on homework literally all the time. Architecture school is known for being one of the most time-consuming majors you can go into. So constant all-nighters and everything. So I just had homestead YouTube, gardening YouTube playing in the background. Sunshine Farm was like the first person I got into watching, because I was vegetarian at the time. So her homestead was like plant-based homestead, and then I found Roots and Refuge, and it was a snowball from there.
Yeah, you're really incorporating a lot of things we talk about here on the podcast. Like, have you watched our videos before? Jeez, you like
I've listened to some of your podcast episodes for sure.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job. You're like doing my job for me. Good job. Keep going.
Keep interrupting me. I'm just going off my little list. So yeah, I'm not the kind of person who can do things in a small way. I have to really go all in, or else I'm going to lose interest. So a lot of stuff happened in between then and now. We ended up buying a house in Metro Detroit a year and a half after moving in with our friend, and we sold that 6 months later. But before we even bought that house, like we were in escrow still. It was our first house, and we built garden beds, like raised beds to bring to the house. We hadn't even closed on it yet. That's how excited we were to grow stuff.
Yeah.
And we sold that house 6 months after buying it. And we bought a camper and moved into the camper. We renovated it and moved to Charleston, South Carolina for a job for Taylor, my husband now. And we lived there for a summer. And basically he was a month or two into that job, and the job that he had previously been interviewing for in Charlotte when we lived there came open again, and he's like, I'm applying to it. And he ended up getting it this time. So
That's
we moved
awesome.
to North Carolina.
Awesome.
And yeah, that's kind of where we ended up. We toured, I think, 3 or 4 houses here. Most of them were like way above our budget, but that was all that was available. And they had about an acre. This one was abandoned for a year or more, and it had 8 acres. And it's covered in trash. It was leaking like no other. All the paneling, floors, ceilings, everything had to come out, half the walls, the subfloors, everything.
Definitely a fixer-upper property.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can see in the background, if you're watching on the video, you can see we have unfinished drywall still. We don't have floors. Yeah, so it's a major renovation. Everything, like literally about an acre or two of our property was being used as a construction landfill. So there are sorted piles of construction trash covered in kudzu.
Wow.
And we'll deal with it at some point, but it's a fixer-upper majorly. But yeah, we have 8 acres and I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
So how long again have you lived in this property right now?
So we've been here just over a year. We bought it October of 2022.
Okay. So you've been just working slowly at it ever since. Like, how's progress on that going?
So we lived in the camper for the first few months we were here. And that was when we were demoing the house. So we had to put a new roof on it, all that kind of stuff. And in December, like a few days before Christmas last year, the camper got moldy. So we ended up having to move into the house unplanned. And we have all the drywall like put up and everything. We don't have floors at all, but we're living in it just fine. We obviously have all of our stuff in here. Our cats are in here. It's a little dusty. There's a lot of spiders, but other than that, it's going well. We spent all last winter putting in the garden. So I spent all of like January and February tilling and trying to get this rock solid clay into garden beds. And we spent most of this year building our chicken coop because it's like a chick mansion is what we've been calling it.
That's cool. That's cool. So like now what all do you have on your property farm wise? Like animals, garden spaces, like tell us about that. Like what are you doing homesteading farm wise?
So right now we have chickens and ducks and then our cats. But the chickens and ducks we got back in June, and we got them as chicks because we wanted to experience the whole process. Neither of us have had farm animals before. So we wanted to get them. We got them from McMurray. We have 16 chickens and we had 6 ducks. One of them died the week that we got them, and then so we have 5. They are hilarious. I absolutely love them. And it's really, really cool to have them. But as far as gardens go, we have like our whole garden area. It used to be some animal paddock. I don't know what they had in there, horses or goats or something. But the whole area we have is like 1/3 of an acre. But we're using like maybe half of it for the garden right now. So I got a lot of garden beds set up. We have a lot more to go at some point.
Well,
Yeah.
cool.
Are you guys growing more food than what you can preserve? Or I worded that really weird. Are you guys growing enough food to be able to preserve, or mainly fresh eating right now on just the half of the 1/3 that you were talking about?
So it's probably about 25 beds, and they range from 4 foot wide by 12 foot long to 4 foot wide by 24 foot long. So they're really big.
So you've got space.
Yeah, we have a lot of space. We grew
cool.
a lot, like
That's cool.
lot. I had a hard time keeping up with preserving. One of my tasks on my to-do list tonight is to go through and count all of the stuff that we preserved this year, because I'm making a YouTube video on it for later this week. And yeah, we preserved a lot. We honestly ate less of it fresh than I thought we would. I thought we were gonna eat more of it fresh, but I was too excited to get it preserved. So I was just like piling it in the jars
I
all
love
year.
this. I love to see the excitement in like, because you're obviously, I can't say you're like beginner, but like you're still like you're growing into this and you're finding what this lifestyle is. And like I'm not saying I've been doing this for like years and years and years. I'm only 18, okay? But like I think it's so cool to see like the passion and the excitement in people that actually want to do this lifestyle. Like that to me is so awesome because we here on the podcast are very passionate about educating others and like sharing the knowledge of homesteading and agriculture because you know we're living in a time where our world like I don't know what the heck's happening anymore. Like I mean
I don't think
in a
anything does.
exactly in like a flip of your finger like it's something crazy could happen. The whole world could just shut down and you know I think people who aren't like prepared for this like we need to be ready because you never know what could happen and to have this like self-sufficient mindset and you want to be efficient and in that sense growing off of your property I just I think it's neat to see how passionate you are and excited about like you know growing your own vegetables and having chickens. Like chickens are awesome. I love chickens so much.
I know, and it's kind of silly. Like it feels silly to be so excited about chickens. We just got our first eggs a couple weeks ago. One of our girls started laying, and it's like I made a whole YouTube video about it. I'm just so excited.
Yeah.
I know it
That's
sounds silly,
seriously. It's
but
not. It's
it's
not.
fun.
It's a
And
new experience. And you guys are just, you know,
exactly.
experimenting with it for you're feeling this feeling for the first time. And you
Mhm.
know, whenever we first started our journey, you know, growing things and like I was never really passionate about it till these past 2 or 3 years. But like being able to go out of my garden and like start something from seed and watching it grow into something bigger. I want chickens every single year, but like my parents are like, "Oh, we have enough. You know, 25's
Mhm.
enough." And I'm like, I don't know about that." But it is like just a couple like just last week we got my first like actual green egg. I've never
Mhm.
had green eggs before. Like that's exciting to me because I've always wanted this rainbow of colors. Like, you know, you set like these goals whenever you're doing this and then once you reach them it is like a freaking party because it's the neatest thing. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
I know, and that's exactly why I was saying I'm doing this to make myself like more foods because
Yeah.
if I put so much effort into these things, I'm gonna appreciate them more
Mhm.
in general. And I do like I try to appreciate all those little things and I do get so excited about it. And it's really funny because I do feel like such a beginner in all of this stuff, but then for the last it's the end of 2023. So for the last 3 years, I've been dreaming about this. I've been watching videos on how to do all this stuff. I've been reading. So like I feel like I know all of this stuff, but I'm the beginner in the aspect of I'm putting it into practice for the first
Yeah.
time, a lot of this stuff. And that's just really cool to like
Yeah.
see what my expectations were versus like how it actually is and just experience all that stuff for the first time.
And when you do
Yeah.
become more like skilled with it, like when you do like get more under your belt and you really learn more and more, then people ask you, "How do you do this? How do you do that?" And then you get the joy of teaching people. That's
Yeah.
even more fun because you know, I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with somebody about my chickens because in my opinion, I think all my chickens have different personalities. They've
They
all
do.
got names. They all do their own thing. Like this is just some people don't believe me, but I mean, I
I
may be a
know.
little
People don't
crazy.
believe me that I know all my chickens apart. There are
Yeah,
4 of them that I get like questionable, but the rest of them I know for sure who they are. They all have names.
People do that
I
with me
really
and they
like
compare
her.
and they're like they all look the exact same. I'm like, no, they don't. You don't
No.
know them like I do. I've raised them since they were little. They've changed. Their personalities are so different. And they're
Yep.
like,
Yeah.
they just don't believe it. And I'm like, you'll understand one day.
Yeah. No, I'm like, that's Mango, that's Clementine, that's Peach. How can
Exactly.
you tell them apart?
Exactly. And like I have Exactly. I have specific chickens where like my parents, like through the years, my parents have more so they like watch the chickens more and they're like, oh, so this chicken's that's who that is. Like, is that name? Like, and I'm like, yeah, that's so and so and that's so and so. And now granted, all my chickens, I think at this point, I think all my chickens look very different. Each one's kind of different. They're all still chickens. Like if somebody came to my yard, like they're not gonna know who's who.
Yeah.
But like back when our first batch of chickens, like going on 8 years ago, our first flock of chickens, they were all black star sex links, and so they're all just these black chickens, and like nobody knows the difference between them except me, and I had a name for each one. I still have 2 living in my chicken coop right now. They're 8 years old. They're old farts, man, but they're wonderful. They're like the best chickens, honestly. And I love that because those were like my first flock, and to see them, they've kind of grown up with me like through
for real. If you're only 18, yeah,
exactly.
that's cool.
8 years, and they've just grown up with me, and I've been able to like do all this homesteading thing, all this gardening stuff, and they've just been right there to when I'm gardening. They're right there by the fence to get all the bugs and whatnot to scratch. They'll sneak into my garden and they just rip up everything.
Oh yeah, mine too. Yeah. That's
Chickens
okay.
are awesome. Yeah, I let it slide.
Me too.
You can't get mad at them. What do you guys have any other plans to raise other animals besides just the chickens and ducks right now?
So yeah, our homestead is a little weird, different, I guess. I just started eating meat again back in January of this year, and my husband is still vegetarian. So when we bring animals onto the property, we need to be kind of conscious about what we're going to do with them more than just as a food aspect, because I am not personally comfortable butchering things on my own, at least at this point.
Yeah.
And I want to be really cautious of his feelings about things. So when we bring stuff onto the property, it's going to be for other purposes, not just food. So the chickens and the ducks, they're for eggs, obviously. Right. And he eats more eggs than any other person I've ever met. So that
eggs
works
are delicious.
Well. Yeah. So with them, like we want to use them for building compost and that kind of stuff. And then the ducks, eventually we'd like to move them down to our orchard. We have an acre area that we want to be our orchard. We're going to build a pond down there eventually, and we want them to be our little orchard ducks. They're runner ducks.
I love runner ducks.
I know, they're the silliest creatures. Messy but silly. And then the next thing we want to get is goats, and the reason for that is, one, we both love goats. I love their personalities, and I think they would be a great milk animal for me personally. I have a lot of dairy issues. Yeah. So the fact that they're all A2, and then they're also a manageable size. We want to get Nigerian dwarfs, and then the kudzu. Kudzu, I don't know if you guys probably know what kudzu is. If you're
I watched some of your videos just to like do my research beforehand, so I do know what you're talking about when you say that. Yeah.
So we have you go to our local coffee shop, and I literally have like one of their koozies, like can koozies, and it says our county's name and then kudzu, capital of the South.
So if anybody here on the podcast doesn't know what that is, do you want to explain it for them?
Yeah, I'll try. So basically back in the 1800s, I believe, somebody brought this vining plant over and used it for erosion control. And it has completely swallowed up the entire southeast of the US. It crawls over like 100-foot tall trees and kills them. And our at least 2 acres of our property is just absolutely covered in it. Everything in that part of the property is dead, like standing dead. So we need to take all that out. But it has a really, really high protein content, and goats love it. So you can actually rent goats down here and have people bring them to your property to clear kudzu for you. But it's all expensive. So we're gonna get our own.
But that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because while you're moving and they're working animals, you're also benefiting from it as well, because if you milk them, then you're gaining from it, whereas they're work animals as well. That's really smart. That is cool.
And then they're also kind of pets too, because we just
Yeah.
enjoy them.
Oh, for sure.
Something else that we've considered getting is, so we have about 2 or 3 acres worth of actual woods, like forests, really big trees and everything. The kudzu is kind of climbing through there, and we have a lot of poison ivy in there. We've thought about maybe getting pigs, because kudzu, the way it grows, the reason it doesn't die or go away is because it has tubers that go like probably 2 feet or more into the ground. And so if you get pigs, they should be able to root and like dig those up and eat them and kill them. Our neighbors have had success with that, so we've considered that. But I don't know what to do with a pig that has cleared the woods, and I'm not comfortable butchering it by myself.
Yeah.
So that's something that we need to consider in the future, but who knows if we'll get them for real or not.
Right. It is a process.
Are you considering getting? Sorry.
What was that?
Go ahead.
How many goats are you considering getting?
I think max we'd want to have like 5 or 6, probably. Not anything huge.
Yeah, I used to work in a property 2 hours away from here. They had really bad problems with poison ivy, and they had 5 goats, and they first had them on, I don't know what it is, but like cords where they could like go throughout kind of like a maze all throughout the property where it was worse. But eventually they just let them free range the whole property, but they still cleared all of that very, very well. And then I went through cutting everything off that was like 6 foot high. So then you could see all the way through there. And it was just beautiful after all of that was finished.
That's exactly our plan. We're probably going to try and get the movable electric netting for them. I've heard that works well. That's what people who like rent their goats out to bring to properties do. So that's our plan.
Good. It's very good.
For the poison ivy also, that's a good note. I didn't even like, that's part of our plan. I just forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
The electric fence is great. It's if you're looking into it, Premier One, is that the company? Okay. Don't touch it. Oh my gosh. I thought it was off. And there's 2 settings on the chicken one. I don't know if they I think they make like different types, but like on the chicken one, there's 2 settings. There's we use a daytime, nighttime. That's how we do it. But like level 1, it's like a little zap. Like I had to touch it to make sure it was on. Okay. It wasn't that bad. Level 2 is killer. Oh my gosh. I literally, like my grandfather said, how do you turn this? He called me the one day. How do you turn this dang fence off? I just got knocked clean back on the ground. Like he touched it. It sent a shock like through my whole body. That'll get.
I guarantee that will happen to me at some point. I'm super clumsy, so that's definitely gonna happen, whether I try to or not.
It's nasty. Whatever you do, electric fence. I mean, I feel like that's kind of like, you kind of have that idea like, yeah, electric fence, probably shouldn't touch that, but like if you do, man, it hurts. It hurts so bad.
Not thinking about it, I'm gonna touch it someday. I know it. It's gonna happen.
What is your favorite thing to grow?
So earlier I said that I don't really like tomatoes, but I really like growing tomatoes. I think that's probably my favorite thing to grow. I also really, really enjoyed growing zinnias this year. It was kind of an accident. We planted them and then it got really, really, really wet. Like it rained like 4 inches the next day. All the seeds washed away. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna cover this with mulch and plant my asparagus here. I did that. And then after it was mulched, the seeds were moist enough, and apparently there were still some there, and we had zinnias, and it was like a whole bed, and it was so cool.
That's awesome.
Zinnias are amazing. This was my first year growing zinnias. I loved it. I loved it. They're beautiful.
They're so easy too. Like,
oh my gosh, yes.
I feel like they're underrated.
We need to keep the plants alive, and these are like easy.
Yeah. My top 2 favorite flowers to grow are sunflowers and zinnias. I just think they're like the sunflowers. They're easy.
I love the big sunflowers a lot. We did like a sunflower tunnel this year, and the deer ate most of one side of it, so it was kind of just like a patch, but they stayed out of my garden though for the most part, so it's fine.
That's good.
But yeah, I like the big sunflowers. And then one of the things that surprised me that I liked the most this year, or one of the things I liked the most this year, was dahlias from seed, because they're surprises. You never know what you're gonna find or like get from them. And I had so many people tell me not to grow dahlias from seed because you don't know what you're gonna get. But it was so exciting. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this flower gonna look like?
Yeah, they're
I
cool.
like that when growing zinnias, because I save a bunch of seeds every year. So sometimes I get things that are completely like the parent. Sometimes I get things that are a weird mix of the two. And I'm like, this is really cool. I'm going to try to save seeds again, but it's not going to. I like a little surprise every now and then. I'll mix a few different ones and just reach in and throw them down. I'm like, that's going to be really cool when they finally come up.
That's what I saved a bunch from our zinnias. So I'm hoping we get some mixes like that too.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, that's what I did this year, and I'm excited. This was my first year growing flowers. I've never grown flowers before at all. So like I did the zinnias and I did the dahlias as well, and they were very cool for a first time experience for like flowers and stuff. I did enjoy it. But like I can say like I'll do zinnias again, but I don't know if I'll do dahlias again, simply because for what I want to use them for, they weren't my favorite. I like to like make like arrangements and whatnot. And so I didn't like how they like split and it like was really awkward to bunch it all together. It was just like these two things just like sticking out the side. It was really awkward for me, but they're super pretty, and like the smell is like they're really cool. They're really cool flowers.
Did you grow them from tuber, or did you grow them from seed? Seed. Okay. Yeah, ours definitely were like they kind of get lanky, like they spread out weird. But I did them in our hugelkultur bed, so I just kind of let them spread out and do their thing. So I didn't pick those. I just used zinnias, and I guess I used some sunflowers and just other random little stuff that I had planted, cosmos and whatnot, for bouquets, but not. I didn't use the dahlias.
Can you
go more into hugelkultur?
I was gonna ask that same question. Yes, please go more into detail about that bed, because we were actually discussing doing a video on this type of gardening. So yeah, go ahead, please.
The hugelkultur?
Yeah. Yes, please.
What
is it?
So it's technically hill culture. I think I don't know if it's German or if it's something like that. That's probably wrong.
It sounds German. Let's go with that.
It means hill culture though. So basically you are building like a living ecosystem under the soil and then putting the soil on top and like layering it. So it's sort of like lasagna gardening. Yeah. But the way I did it, there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. The way we did it, and the reason I did it, is because we had a dead tree that was already laying in the perfect garden bed spot in our garden right there. So I was like, you know what? It's already rotten. I'm going to make it a hugelkultur bed so I don't have to move it. Exactly. So I piled, so that like it was the tree trunk and everything. I just kind of like piled it into a mound. And then we had to get fill dirt and topsoil to grade in front of our house. So I added a bunch of that. Like I shoved that into all the cracks and crevices with a bunch of dead leaves. And then you can put like used hay or straw, like I guess animal bedding would be the best, that's like already rotting. And I didn't do that though. I just used leaves because that's what we had. I used grass clippings, that kind of stuff. And then I just put the compost and the dirt on top of it and then mulched it heavily and planted things in it. And so basically over time, the wood and stuff that you put into the lower layers of it breaks down and it feeds your plant's roots and builds like a nice microbiome in there.
That's awesome.
That's the gist of it in like layman's terms, because that's my understanding of it.
So like, how big are your like hills that we're talking? How big are they?
You can make them any size you want. Mine, I only did one because of that tree was just in that spot. So I just tried to make it roughly the 4 foot by 12 foot that I have our other beds. So it's like in the same row as those. But I've seen people, like if you look them up on Pinterest or things like that, people will make them like tall so that you can
Because
get like
that's what my
vertical
that's
space.
what's in my mind right now. Like, is that how is yours low to the
No.
ground? Is it tall? Is it
Ours is probably 2.5 or 3 feet tall. It's not like super, it's not
okay?
like a triangle, it's more of like a mound.
Right, right.
But yeah, it worked well. It grew a lot of, I have herbs in it that are still alive actually. So what I've heard is that since they hold the heat better, they'll start growing things earlier in the year than like other normal beds, I guess, because they'll heat up faster since they're
Yeah,
insulated. And then you don't have to water them either because they're really heavily mulched. So
that
It's amazing.
is so cool.
I know, I liked that one a lot. I want to do more of those eventually.
We need to hire you. You're like doing our job for us. You are covering things we've talked about on the podcast. You're like teaching us things. Like we've been wanting to do a video, like just talking about that and educating more on that. That's really interesting. Wow. Learn
What
something
is,
every day.
with the gardening topic, what is your favorite thing to preserve?
That's a hard question.
Tomatoes are fun.
Almost pretty much everything that I preserved this year, I preserved for the first time. I taught myself how to do it back when I lived with our friend, and I did peaches and what else did I do? Peaches and then sweet corn. Those were the two things that I like taught myself back in 2021. And then this year I did everything I possibly could. But
do you pressure can? Do you can?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why. So when I wanted to learn how to do both. So I did peaches and I did those water bath, and then I did the corn because that was pressure canned. But I just bought both of those from the store. Like I didn't grow that stuff.
Hey, you were experimenting. Once again, you learned how to do it. Now when you grow peaches, corn, whatever, you know how to do it now. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a favorite. Honestly, I really just like the process of it. I'm excited to have a break from it because it's been a lot. I just canned like 20 quarts of turkey broth from Thanksgiving.
It's so much. Whenever like harvest season comes, it's so much because we preserve, we can, all that stuff. It's like it's a lot because it's not just like, yeah, like through the summer, little bit, and then it's like bam, fall. Okay, green beans, tomatoes, we got the corn, we got the carrots. Like it's like it all comes at once. It's like it's a lot. It is a lot.
Yeah, I guess probably the tomato products. I made a lot of tomato sauce from our garden, and that's I think the reason I'm enjoyed that the most is because that's one of the things that actually came out of our garden. I didn't get it like from the farmer's market or from the little co-op store or anything. Those are things that I grew, and then I made them into sauce, salsa, pizza sauce, all that kind of stuff. So I would probably say those.
Have you ever made like pickles and stuff?
That was this is the first time I've made pickles. I haven't tried any of them yet.
Okay, have you ever done refrigerator pickles?
Yeah, actually I have.
Those are cool. I like doing those.
They're nice and crunchy. I like those ones a lot. Yeah, I haven't tried any of our pickles or relish yet because we go through them very slowly. So we still have some of the store-bought ones that we had when I was canning them. So we use them for like burgers and stuff, not snacking. But bread and butter pickles, once I open one of those jars, I'm sure they'll all be gone soon because those are my favorite.
Yes. What about salsa? Do you like salsa?
I did do salsa. I just did like the standard. I just make like a fresh pico sort of salsa that we put on nachos, and sometimes I snack on it, but usually we just put it on tacos and nachos and that kind of stuff. So I just did one kind of salsa. Actually, I did peach salsa too.
Oh, so that's fancy. That's cool.
We made some hot sauce. I made peach hot sauce.
I want to make hot sauce.
I tried fermented hot sauce this year.
I want to do that too.
Really good. It was really cool. I'm not like a spicy food kind of person, but my husband loves spicy stuff, so a lot of that stuff is for him.
So do you grow like zucchini? Have you ever grown? Try.
We have the worst squash bugs in the entire world.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I was gonna say zucchini's pretty for me at least. It's pretty prolific except for bugs.
Like, oh yeah. I had probably like 50 plants come up because I kept trying to plant them all year long, and I probably got 5 zucchini.
This
This
year
fall-
was my year with zucchini. We've had really bad squash bugs and they held off a little bit later this year.
Yeah.
And we we made like 20 loaves of zucchini bread from the zucchini that we had gotten. And it was just wonderful. And then the squash bugs came and I was like, well, I wanted more zucchini bread.
Yeah, the thing we were on was zucchini fritters, like cheesy zucchini fritters. That was
There's
my
so many
thing of the
things you can
summer.
do with zucchini. Like
Yeah.
literally the amount of things that people have come up with because zucchini literally grows out your ears. Like it's ridiculous. Like we make zucchini salsa. We've made like a mock zucchini apple. Like it's like it actually tastes like apples. We made zucchini pineapple. Like
I've seen people do the pineapple. I want to try that.
it's good. Like there's so many things you can do with zucchini. So like y'all, if you got zucchini coming out your ears, you know, there's lots of things you can do with zucchini. Grilling zucchini is so good. I
Yeah,
think that's
love
like
zucchini.
oh, I love zucchini. Oh my gosh.
I like doing it with pasta and then fried eggs on top.
Ooh, that
So
sounds good.
I do the zucchini, squash, and then onion, and just saute those, and then put them in with the pasta, and then the fried eggs on top. It's so good.
Yo,
never
this is
tried that
turned
with
into a
fried
full-on
egg.
cooking show.
I know, I'm getting hungry.
We're gonna need a mid snack. So let's talk about something. What would you say? I think you touched on it a little bit, but like, what would you say your favorite thing? Like, you could say so far, but like your favorite thing in general about this lifestyle. What would you say that would be?
So I don't like being stagnant. I like when things are constantly changing and I don't get bored. In this lifestyle, I'm never going to be bored.
Yep.
I love to learn things. I love to be busy and I always have a project to work on now. I always have something new to learn and I don't think even 50 years from now if I'm gardening, I'm going to know everything. So like I'm
Right.
always going to be learning. And I think like the changing of the seasons and like there's always something new to look forward to and not even look forward to for the first time or the second time. It's it's going to come back around, but you get a break from it. And I think that's my favorite thing.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Zach said it before, like about the whole learning thing. Like if you're a gardener and you've reached a point where you're like, yep, I'm done learning, like you're really limiting yourself because honestly, there's so many things like in this whole big gigantic world. There's somebody out there who learned something new and they're going to tell others about it. There's a new way you can grow green beans. There's a new way you can build something. There's a new way you can, get the best bang for your buck from chicken keeping. Like there's always something new you can learn. And I think you said about permaculture in the beginning. Like we're huge on permaculture here as well. Like that's just it's it's very important when it comes to this lifestyle because honestly, we want to be self-sufficient and we want to be, using what we have and not letting things go to waste. And that really is the whole point of permaculture. And I really think that's important when you're doing this lifestyle because, you're learning new things and you're learning from your experiences. You're learning from man, like my chicken died. What could I have done to help that scenario? You're learning like instead of letting something go to waste, you're learning to use that instead. So it's always a learning process. And I think even when we're all gray and old, like I still think we're going to be learning something and to be able to pass that down through many generations into other people. It's just this life is so stinking cool. And like I get super hyped about it because I love it. It's like it's my life. It's a joy to me. And I'm super blessed and grateful that I get to experience this and that, even with this podcast series, like that I get to find other people that are like-minded and like us and just find these joys because it's a simple life, yet it's so fulfilling. It is so
It's
fulfilling.
very rich. There's a lot to be grateful for in it. And yeah, I agree completely.
I think people get caught up in when people think of riches, it's like acquiring all the money that you can acquire. And that's not, this lifestyle isn't about that. And that's why I like it so much is because I'm good with like 20 chickens and a garden. That's what makes me happy. It's not about the material things. It's about fulfilling your soul, but also giving back where you can and helping others to achieve their own dreams in a sense.
You know, I learned probably a couple months before graduating undergrad, I realized like I had this epiphany that I don't want to be in the corporate world. And I've never been like the kind of person who's had this big goal that they've always achieved. Like I've never been like, I'm always going to be, I'm going to be a doctor when I grow up. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And I think, and I'm almost 30, I'm 27. Like I still don't know. And I don't know that I'm ever going to be like, this is what I want to do, because I like trying new things. And I think this this lifestyle really lets you do that and lets you change things and just tailor your life to what you want and change it whenever you feel like it.
Exactly.
Right. And that's why, I mean, when I was younger, I've always liked animals. And one of the key moments in my life that got me started on this was we were living with my grandpa at the time, and he had a garden out in the back. It's just what he liked to do before he went back to working. And every morning he would wake up and he'd be like, I'm going to get me a tomato sandwich when I get home. I like tomatoes, so I would go out there and eat them right after he left. And then he'd be like, well, I guess the deer got them. And he would get some, but he wouldn't get as many as he saw. But I've always liked that aspect. I've always loved fresh homegrown tomatoes. So I would go over to family members' houses and pick all the tomatoes that I could eat. And they were just like, stuff your face full of them. You're fine. There's so many. And then I've just always liked animals. And for a time, I was like zookeeper because I felt like that was like the only job that had animals, in my opinion. And I didn't want to be a vet because that can get very, very difficult. But I think homesteading for me was really the option and the best option, in my opinion, to do all of those things while also still living a very good life.
Yeah, I think it gives you it's a lot like just gardening in general. You can be any kind of homesteader you want. Like I said, we're half vegetarian homestead. Like who does that?
Exactly. You can limit your title to say, yeah, I'm a farmer, right? But like in the reality, you have so many things like under your belt that you've learned. Like I've learned so much within the past like 10 years of my life. It's incredible. The amount of like I've become like basically a vet, like a poultry vet, because I've dealt with so many sicknesses through my flock, but I've learned that. And so when people have questions and they ask me, okay, this is how you do this. I've had people ask me like many times, like even me and Zach both, like they'll ask us questions about, okay, my bird is doing this, this, and that. And I'm like, okay, I've dealt with this before. I've done a lot of research. I've read a lot of books, and with like you said, with like gardening, like I'm a flower gardener, I'm a produce farmer, I'm all these things, and I've learned so much about all these different varieties. We raise our own meat chickens, and to be able to preserve our food and to be able to have that aspect of butchering. I've learned a lot in my life, and it's not only that, yeah, I'm a farmer, sure, you can limit your title with that, but I'm so much more than that. Like I think like it's just it's such a cool life. I get so hyped about it.
The way I like to think about it is like when you're a Girl Scout and you're like a little kid and you have the little vests and they have the patches for all the things that you've done or like participated in. I'm like, I need one of those for when people ask what I do. I need my Girl Scout vest that shows
like let me get my vest out so
I'll show you this badge right here. I got this one and this one. I like that.
Yeah, we totally need that. That'd be sick. But I think, do you have any questions? Do you have a question?
Yeah. Where do you see, doesn't have to be deep or super in depth, but where do you see your farm in the future? Where would you like it to go?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I've learned since we've moved here that things don't work on my timeline, and it's definitely like everything takes longer and costs more money than you think it's going to, which is completely fine. It's all part of the journey. But in the future, I guess in the next few years, we just really want to get our house done and like comfortable to live in, so we can actually take more rest time, because we don't do that very much right now. And eventually I would love to be able to quit my job so that I could focus solely on YouTube. That's one of my main priorities, just because my mental health needs it.
Yeah.
And the homestead really requires more hours than I can give to it right now. So we want to get our goats. We want to be preserving a lot of our own food, growing a lot of our own food, and really just, I think the last time I was able to relax as a human being was in middle school. So overall, I just want to like create an oasis, a place that we can enjoy being, and also that rejuvenates us, that we're not just putting work into it. We're trying to streamline things so that we have time to enjoy it too.
Yeah. And I believe you'll get there. Everything takes time. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of effort, but once you get down your plan, your basic knowledge of like how you want things to work, and you get everything working and functioning properly, it really is. Yeah. I think you'll get there.
It's creating what I like doing, and I've seen that you've done this too. It's creating a list and just next thing on the list, just keep working at it and working at it and working at it, and eventually you'll get there.
Yep, it's one foot in front of the other. The next fire that needs to be put out, really.
Exactly. So you mentioned YouTube. Do you want to, plug your YouTube channel, Instagram, whatever you're on, for our viewers if they want to check you out?
Yeah, so
for it.
Okay, so the main places that I'm active are YouTube. We post 1 to 3 times a week right now on there, and that is Calico Cow Acres. Instagram at Calico Cow Acres. I'm on there usually in stories every day. And then we have a blog with recipes and stuff like that. That's calicocowacres.com. And then in January of 2024, I'm starting a podcast with a couple of my homesteading friends, and it's going to be called She Said Homestead, and we're going to be focusing on homesteading as women and just homesteading as people who are still working, and alternative homesteaders. So yeah.
That's is
awesome.
Super cool. Guys, we will get links for all of this, and we'll have it in the description so you guys can find that a lot more easier. But y'all check them out. Go follow them, subscribe, whatever you need to do. Go do it. Go do it. Like this is cool. I'm really glad you got to join us here on the podcast, because I really enjoyed my time talking with you, and I'm excited to see y'all's journey progress and to see where you go. I'll definitely be watching your YouTube channel from now on, and that sounds a little stalking-ish, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued to see y'all's journey and to see how this works out for you. So,
thank you.
Best of luck on your homestead journey. And I think that's everything for this video. Does anybody else have anything they want to add?
I have one thing that I would like to say.
Go for it.
Just, I guess, in the plug with our YouTube channel, we're just sharing our life and sharing what we're doing every single week. So the main goal of it is I want to show people that you can do this when you're young. You can do this if you still have debt. You can do it paycheck to paycheck. You can do it on a little lot in a metro area while you're working a corporate job. You can do it if you didn't grow up doing it, and if you don't have anybody to teach you how to do it, you can dream big and go after the dreams, as long as you're comfortable, as long as you're willing to get uncomfortable in the meantime. You can do this. Everybody can do this. So
this is the most inspiring video we've ever made. Oh my gosh. This is great. Oh, this is so cool. I'm excited for this video to come out so everybody can see it, because this is neat. This is really cool. Zach, anything else you want to add?
No, I think I'm good.
I think we're good. Thank you for joining us here. And guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you all in the next one. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye, guys.